Good afternoon, everybody. We are back live for team news. It has been 3+ months since I've done this, or we've done this, I should say. And as ever, I am joined by team news injury lineup guru, Neale. How are you doing?
Definitely not a guru, just a compiler of information from the press. I'm all right, Andy. Yeah, very busy as you'd expect. At the expense of my own team, which I'll probably be doing now for the next 2 hours after this is finished. But yeah, lots to discuss, and yet at the same time, nothing much to discuss because we've only had six of the pre-match press conferences, and that's all we'll get before the deadline. We have got other nuggets to go off, so we'll run through them as best we can now. But prepare for the unexpected, I think, over the next few days, as we're going to get up to 14 press conferences on Thursday and Friday. So that could provide a few shocks that we don't know about, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're going to have to just get used to that, I think, with all the deadlines the way they're going. Hopefully, it's not too much bad news. I'm sure most people have thought about that already. It's kind of apt we're doing kind of lineup and injury stuff because I had a medical this morning, nothing major, just for rubbish insurance reasons, but kind of made me smile when I thought we were going to do this later on. But enough of that. No one cares about what's going on in my life. Let's just kick off. Double game week teams to start because they are the ones we're all talking about.
We usually get some information from City that there's any injuries, but there was nothing yesterday, and less so about team news. Pep rarely ever tells you when someone's going to play, but according to him, he says the players have come back really well. But he did stress, as you'd predict, that they're not ready to play one game 3 days after another, which is what they're going to do. I think they've got 12 up to 12 League and Cup fixtures to juggle in the next 40 days if they progress to the FA Cup semi-finals. And Pep says that he's going to have to rotate and use all of his players. So get set for this. This is going to be the way, I think, for the foreseeable, especially as City haven't really got that much to play for. They've got a top four place secure, if that means anything, with the ban, and they're not going to catch Liverpool. So yeah, even more of a crapshoot, I think, in the remaining 8 game weeks, 9 game weeks. But yeah, nothing really to come out of the press conferences. This is a recurring theme really today, unfortunately. The fact that we've had a 3-month break means that a lot of these injured players have had a chance to recover. So Sane and Laporte, for example, both back in full training and both featured in training ground kickabout. So Pep said they're both fine and confirmed that David Silva's signed a contract extension at the end of the season as well. So he's got a full complement of players, which makes second guessing them even harder, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, he came out obviously and said that he was going to rotate. I don't really think that came as a shock. We all kind of knew that
No.
when we were picking Man City players anyway. I did see an article on Sky Sports where he basically said he would, and I'm sure most managers will be doing this anyway, but he said he would be using those 5 substitutes every game, is pretty much
Yeah.
what he said. And then he also mentioned a few players, Sterling, Bernardo Silva, Mahrez, and Kyle Walker. They're the kind of players that are it basically made it sound like they're in better physical condition. They can play for longer, but that doesn't mean they're going to play 2 games. It just means they might stay on for 65, 70 minutes instead of, 55, 60, whatever it might be. Has any of the news you've heard kind of made you change your Man City players in your lineup at all?
No, not yet. I mean, what you said there is sort of echoes what you said previously about Sterling and Mahrez in particular. Sterling's powers of regeneration, he called it, makes him sound like Doctor Who. He's really healed. I think his recovery in between games when they're packed together is good. Mahrez, he says, never gets injured because he hasn't got any leg muscles. So you're clutching at straws, really. You're going off stuff like that from the past to try and justify your picks. But I've heard nothing from Pep, unsurprisingly. In the last 24 hours, that's made me change my mind. And at the moment, it's Aguero and De Bruyne who I've got for my City representation. But I'm not ruling out a third in the final 2-hour panic I'm going to have before the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Aguero, De Bruyne, and Sterling, and nothing I've heard has made me really change my mind. Captaincy might change, like that'll go right up to the deadline, but
Yeah.
we knew he was going to rotate anyway. We knew it was kind of probably 1 game plus minutes as kind of the most hopeful thing we could wish for. But we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to Sheffield United because there has been some kind of more news from them. Talk us through it.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday Wilder held his press conference and said that he had a clean bill of health, really. He didn't report anything. He even said that he doesn't think there's going to be an incredible amount of changes. That's what he said. Those were his words. Based on what he's done before, he's been very rotation averse, other than up front. So I think like the front, so the back 8 or 9 players have basically stayed the same all season, with the exception of Lundstrom. and it's been up top wise rotated. But today, some developments. I think this first leaked last night on Twitter, but we didn't have anything to go off other than that. And then Sam Wallace from the Telegraph has, I wouldn't say confirmed it because he's not an official source, but he is throwing more weight behind the rumours, I think, by reporting that O'Connell is set to miss out tonight, and Fleck is also an injury out. So they were two of the regulars in Wilder's 11 this season. And it sounds like O'Connell's got a problem that's going to keep him out, and Fleck possibly as well. Twitter rumour suggesting that both of them are going to miss out, but we have nothing official. With it being the 5 o'clock kickoff, then we might get some early team leaks, but we'll be relying on things that are creeping out. But that might change a few people's plans, I think, for
I
the
think
Blades going into tonight.
Yeah, like rumors are really difficult on Twitter because there's just so many, especially now with the deadline coming. Like everyone's suddenly in the know and got a source. But like this is one of those where I think there's just, like you said, there's enough weight behind it now where it would. And it would concern me. To be honest, I don't think apart from Fleck maybe for bench boosters, I don't think it hugely changes our teams. O'Connell is not that much better than the rest of them that is suddenly going to blow all your plans out the water. You can just pick up another defender. Are you kind of? I can't remember what your team was looking like. Are you looking at doubling or tripling up on their defence at all?
I did have a triple in my draft. It was Egan and Stevens with Henderson, so those aren't affected by today's injury news. But Lundstrom has got a stronger case. I'm not entirely sure that the Fleck absence, if that does happen, will solve that conundrum between Fleck and Berger, because Freeman's played on the left hand side of central midfield previously when Fleck's been out. So Lundstrom and Berger might still be competing for one spot, but it's hard to resist, isn't it? Given what he's done previously, he has got a
He's
very
in
high
my
ceiling.
team currently.
Is he?
Because I was looking it up, like he's like got 4 or 5 double figure hauls this year.
Yeah.
That is, I think it's 5. That's 4 more than every other defender in that team put together. So like if he starts twice, then like I was actually saying, like if we knew he was going to start twice, I think he's a genuine captain contender. Yeah. But obviously we don't know that, so captaincy's out the window. In terms of like O'Connell missing, would that make you switch from triple Sheffield United, or do you just think they're going to be good enough anyway? One cog out the wheel should be able to replace him.
I think they're very much based on being a team that are greater than the sum of their parts, so they know that system inside out. We're not entirely sure who'll replace O'Connell. Jack Robinson was bought in January. He's a $4 million FPL defender. Now, Wilder said upon signing him that he was bought to provide competition for O'Connell. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he will play there, because I think Retsos is quite versatile. I think he can play across the back line. But yeah, there is, I guess, that argument of O'Connell being out kind of weakens the defence, given that he's a first team regular. But we've seen before that players are able just to slot in when the regulars don't start. Jagielka was filled in for Egan, for example, Freeman for Fleck, and so on. So I don't think so. I think given the fixtures, especially as well, one of them being Newcastle, it's going to be at least a double up and possibly a triple up, based on budget and all that sort of stuff, and perhaps early team news leaks. But yeah, I don't think I'll be going lower than 2 defenders, as much as anything else, because everyone else is doing it. You don't want to be falling behind when the Blades rack up 2 shutouts and then contribute at the other end as well. So at the moment, Egan and Stevens are my 2 outfield Sheffield United players. Could change them.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think this should change too many people's plans. I don't know if they're going to suddenly be an awful team just because of Connell. The only thing I've seen some people trying to guess who is going to replace and maybe look at them because they're a bit cheaper. I think that's I don't think that's a smart move, because I've even seen some people speculating that Stevens could move inside a bit, be the left centre back, and then he could be replaced on the kind of left wing back position. So I just think you're trying to be too clever there. So not for me. But yeah, Lundstrom, I can't get him out of my head anymore. So I think I'm going to go for him. Let's see if he starts. I'm really hoping for some early team news. Okay, next up we have Arsenal. Any kind of injury or lineup indications there?
No, Chambers is a long-term absentee, and Torreira we think isn't going to be match fit. He is back in training, but he hasn't really featured in the previous friendlies that they've had. But other than that, again, we're kind of going off what's happened previously under Arteta and how many players have been ever presence under his stewardship. Didn't really give too much away. I mean, yes, he's had positive words to say about Nketiah and Aubameyang, but he was asked about those players. He didn't just offer that information up freely. So you're gonna praise a player who you're asked about more times than not, just to keep the morale up, etc. So I don't think that's necessarily anything to read into. I think you'll probably see rotation from Nketiah and Lacazette up top over the coming month. And there was a comment actually about rotation, and he said that he doesn't know how the players are going to respond physically. So they're all okay fitness-wise at the moment, but he doesn't know how they're going to respond to 5 games in 15 days, which is what they've got coming up. So he did hint at playing some of his younger players over the coming month, and they have been heavily involved in the pre-season friendlies as well. Willock has played a big part. Saka, of course, we know about. Reece Nelson as well down the flank. So they've all been involved against Brentford and Charlton, I think it was, who they were playing. So you'd expect to see them handed minutes at some point. But the spine of the team, the likes of Leno, Aubameyang, Xhaka, if he's fit, you'd expect to start more games than not, because that has been the case ever since Arteta took charge. But injury-wise, much like the other two, officially, it's all quiet, really.
So you're bench boosting this week, right? Have you got are you bench? Yeah. Are you thinking of putting any of the cheaper Arsenal attackers on, just like his bench boost options?
I did have Saka on my team before this lockdown period, because I was backing him and Aubameyang for my double game week 29 picks. But I'm still not convinced about him. The fact that Tierney's been playing at left back during these warm-up games suggests that him and Bellerin are going to be the full-back pairing. And Saka's been trialled further forward. Now, that's good in a way, because closer to goal. But bad in a sense that he's kind of almost like a utility man, and that he's kind of filling in various positions. I've seen him played in the front three. I've seen him played in central midfield. So never quite sure. I think you'll get minutes for sure. And maybe that's all you can ask for of a 4.7 million midfielder. But I do wonder if there are better alternatives elsewhere. For example, Norwood, 4.9. If you've only got 2 Sheffield United players already, then he's going to have even more of a monopoly on set players. You think if Fleck is out, so I would and more Neale as well. So yeah, it's a tough one. I think given the fact that one of them is an away game at City, I think that makes me less inclined to go with Saka, based on what I've seen in the pre-season games.
Yeah, I've thought about them on free hit, but I can't justify like maybe not even a start. It could just be minutes in both games. Like Nketiah kind of tempts me a tiny bit, but I think he'd be more tempting if he was a midfielder, because there are plenty of strikers that I want to kind of put in my team, whereas midfielders, especially for the double game, not so much. So yeah, Aubameyang a shoe in. I think there's a good chance he might start twice, but yeah, it's going to be difficult outside of that. And we'll leave the. I mean, it's definitely not the best till last. It is probably the worst. Aston Villa. Obviously, John McGinn is one that people are looking at. Any indications of kind of what he might play at all?
Yeah, I think he will play. He hadn't missed a minute, I think, until he got injured before Christmas. So yeah, Smith was very complimentary of him, as you'd expect, and hailed his influence. He is really important to that Villa team on the right hand side of central midfield. But he did say, Dean Smith, that he's got a bit of a concern that he hasn't played for 6 months. So he would be managed appropriately. That was Smith's phrase there. So if he does start, which you think he would, then probably expect an early substitution, and they've got the luxury of 5 of those changes to make now. So I doubt he'll. I'm pretty much sure he won't get 180 minutes in the double game week. But maybe that's not what you want, or maybe that's not necessary, I should say, for him to still return, because he had been getting in some good positions, especially in the early part of the season, sort of drifting into the box. Scored 3 times, I think, in the opening quarter of the campaign. Dropped off a bit after that, I think, because Villa's tactics slightly tweaked. I think Grealish was getting forward a bit more. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, 5.4 is he, I think, now. So another budget. Cheap. Yeah, midfielder to consider. El Ghazi, of course, is 0.1 of a million and more expensive as well. But yeah, just words of caution there from Smith. Again, nothing really surprising, because he's been out for half a year, and he's not going to last 90 minutes in both the games. So just be prepared for that if you are picking him.
Yeah.
Injury-wise, by the way, nothing reported, I think, from Smith, other than the long-term ones, Wesley and Heaton. And I believe those two players aren't eligible to play anyway because they weren't named in the 25-man squad in February. Villa at the time thought that they would have been out for the season, so didn't bother naming them. But as it turns out, here we are.
Rookie mistake. Should have been thinking about the global pandemic.
So, I think that they won't feature at all the rest of the season, by the sounds of it. And I think that has been confirmed recently that they're not going to allow changes to the squad list. So I think they'll not be seen again until next season.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like every player that's been out for a long time, like McGinn, Rashford, Tierney, even I do think there's a good chance they all start because there's especially McGinn because the problem Aston Villa have is they don't really have the luxury of trying to bed him in again because they obviously got in a big relegation fight. So they are gonna. My thinking is they're going to try and play him as much as possible. Obviously, they don't want to also make him injured for the rest of the kind of 8-9 games, but. I think if they can get 50 or 60 minutes out of him and then the same again in the next game, I think that's a big possibility. But anyone that's getting the likes of Rashford and that, you got to expect they're going to be probably the first players off. It's actually what puts me off Tierney, even though I've kind of looked at him a little bit. I guess that's all the double game week players. So we'll just move on to a couple of the single game weekers because there will be some people still obviously considering single game week players for their team. So let's start with Man United up first. Obviously, we've just been talking about Rashford. Anything major from them?
Not really. Solskjaer says he hopes to have everybody fully fit. I think Jones had missed a friendly last week with a minor knock, but he's not going to factor into many people's thoughts. So again, echoing the comments that we've heard previously, Solskjaer stressing that it won't be a case of throwing these players who've been out for a long time straight back in the team and expecting them to play 90 minutes. Doesn't mean to say they won't start, but Rashford and especially Pogba, I think, because Pogba's been out for quite a while, off and on for much of this season. Solskjaer saying he can't just flog one player and say to them, you play every game, every minute. So he used the R word, rotation, and he's chat with TV. We haven't. This is one of the many clubs who haven't had their official pre-match press conference yet. I should say this is just quotes he's given to the United website and media channel. So just basically that Solskjaer's hinting at rotation again, as you would expect. Going forward, I'm personally probably jumping on them from game week 31. So this will be a good audition, I think, game week 30 against Spurs, to see who's starting, how he's fitting in. Pogba, if he does, I suspect he might start on the bench to begin with. But how Rashford's looking and all that sort of stuff. We've seen glimpses of United in the warm-up games. Nothing much to go off, no real lineups to go off. But Fernandes, we'd say, was on penalties, which we thought would be the case because he's got a better track record from 12 yards than Pogba and Rashford. And I think it was one of the games against West Brom where Solskjaer did play Martial, Rashford, Pogba, Fernandes, and James in the same team. So that's a hell of a front five. I do suspect he'll proceed with a bit more caution against Spurs, given how well the likes of Fred and Matic were playing before the lockdown period.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how we line up. He's got to try and fit in the main four. I think Daniel James could easily drop out, although he does obviously provide a lot more pace than the rest of it. I think we've, in some ways, we were just chatting about there, about the press conference coming later on. I think in some ways we've been saved by the fact it's a double game week because we're loading up on so many of those players. It'd be pretty harsh or unlucky to pick a double game week player, especially the main ones, and them to not start either game. Whereas if we had to go into this with single game week players, not knowing the press conferences, that would be hell. And this
is something we're going to have to get used to as well, isn't it? I think game week 32 plus is the one where the FA Cup clashes with it. I think you only got 2 games on at the weekend, and then the rest of them the other 8 are held, I think, Monday to Thursday. So there could be even fewer press conferences to go off then. So this is going to be a recurring theme, I think.
Yeah, strong.
July.
Yeah, originally I was thinking no bench because players are going to come on more for cameo appearances, but I'm starting to really rethink that. I'm pretty glad I've got a playing bench to come back to in game week 31. All right, let's just we'll rattle off some of the other teams. So Everton up next.
Yeah.
Anything major from them?
Yeah, this is probably one of the most involved sides I've written about in terms of injuries. We haven't heard an official press conference from Ancelotti, but he was speaking to the club's media department on Tuesday. Good news is that for them is that Andre Gomez is back in training, and he says he shouldn't have a problem for the Merseyside derby. But they've got a lot of problems elsewhere. So Gbamin and Schneiderlin went already absentees after surgery. Mina and Delph as well. They're big doubts. I think they're trying to recover them for the game, but Ancelotti was kind of hinting that they might be back for the Norwich game in 31 instead. I think they were going to have a check on them today actually, but we won't have any more news on that. And Walcott had surgery last week, so he's going to be out for another 3 weeks as well. So we've got quite a long list. It hasn't done any good this break. Continuing a team that happened in the spring as well, because Everton had a lot of injuries there, especially in centre of midfield. So I do worry that we're all offloading Liverpool players, and I think they could give them an absolute hiding, especially based on what I saw in game week 29 when Chelsea beat them 4-0. I mean, they absolutely caned them down the right flank, especially. Sidibe had an absolute horror show, so you'd think actually we're trying to address that, maybe double up him and Coleman. But yeah, we're all offloading Wamani and Salah picks, and you just know they're going to run riot at Goodison based on that injury list.
Yeah,
So yeah, it looks doesn't look good for Everton really going into that.
it
And they
did.
might yeah.
Sorry, go
Sorry.
on.
Yeah, they might recover one or two of those names, but you have to question how fit they're going to be or match fit they're going to be after time on the sidelines over the last fortnight. So yeah, could be like some Michael Keane at centre half or Tom Davies in central midfield. So yeah, definitely not a first choice 11.
Yeah, I think it did suddenly dawn on me this because I think this always happens as you get closer to the deadline. You start thinking of everything you've probably done wrong, and it did suddenly dawn on me. Not once have I considered Salah or Mane this week, and that
Yeah,
could really hurt, especially because Aubameyang's obviously got 2 games. One of them's against City. That's tough. Aguero, De Bruyne, Sterling. Will they only play one? If they do, then could Salah or Mane outscore them? They definitely could. I think I don't think it's like a massive concern because not many active managers are going to own them. They're certainly not going to
yeah,
captain them.
everyone's
So
doing
that's
it.
so that's the only kind of thing that lets me off. But I'm certainly coming around to having Trent Alexander-Arnold in my team. So that might happen. I should just say before we go on with the rest of the team news, if you want to check out kind of any of the stats and stuff that we use in the videos and in the articles, there is an offer on at the moment that you get it for a slightly cheaper price. It's going to be next year, and you get it for the rest of this season, and it also counts for next season as well. So instead of just waiting until next season to buy your membership at Fantasy Football Scout, you can do it for this season. So you get the rest of this month, or the rest of this season, I should say, plus next season. So if you want to check that out, there is a link in the description as well. So yeah, let's just I'll bring on the kind of just the fixture list now. Do you want to just go through the rest we've had? I don't know if there's anything really major left, so we just go through. Yeah, if you just go through the teams we've got left, and we'll just cover that off, and I'll find out who your captain is this week.
Yeah, well, that's easier said than done. I think I'll decide that at 4:59. Yeah, so I'll just run through an A to Z that I've got on the team news tab, which is updated now. You can go and read that after this is finished and see who I've predicted in the lineups. Hopefully more accurate than not. You never know. Bournemouth, Howe doesn't give as much any information anyway, even when he is giving press conferences, but they did have a concern over Philip Lynn. He had an ankle knot, I think, during the warm-up games. They have got a cluster of players back from injury, the likes of Brooks, Steve Cook as well at centre half, Chris Mepham, Lloyd Kelly, all those sort of players. One thing to note, which isn't really team news related, is Ryan Fraser has refused to sign a contract extension. So he looks set to leave the club on June the 30th. So whether he'll even play before then is open to question. Got Josh King back who can deputise down that left flank. Brighton, there one of the two single game makers who actually had the press conference. Potter reporting a fully fit squad, although we think that doesn't include Jose Izquierdo. Burnley, again, we won't hear from Dyche until later in the week, but fairly significant news up front, really, in that Barnes and Wood, who are our first choice strikers, both doubts and both sounding quite serious doubts as well. Chris Wood's got an Achilles problem, which Dyche was fairly downbeat about when he was asked. I think he said he's going to have to take time to see how it settles down. And Barnes has had an ongoing problem with his groin. He had hernia surgery in January, I think. But again didn't appear too confident when interviewed at the beginning of this month. He said the lockdown period has actually stalled his recovery time rather than aided it. So they might not feature. So it could be in Rodriguez up front. I think Goodmanson's also a doubt with the car problem. Chelsea, Jorginho suspended for the Villa game. Everyone else has been back in training. So the long-term absentees like Pulisic and Hudson-Odoi, Loftus-Cheek, who had been back before the suspension of play, but was only playing in behind closed doors games. Everyone's been back and involved in the pre-season friendlies against Redden and QPR. I think Hudson-Odoi picked up a slight knock, but should be fine. It's just second guessing who they're going to play because they've got a big squad despite their transfer ban. Reece James is another name to mention at this point as well because he had missed out, I think, in the first of those games with a muscle problem, but did come back against QPR, so he might be all right to feature against Villa. Palace, heard nothing yet. But Tompkins and Schlupp were apparently not involved in the friendly against West Ham last weekend, so could be down 2 options at the back. Everyone else, I think, is recovered. Leicester, Pereira's out for what looks like the rest of the season. Daniel Amarty's also a long-term absentee, so I could see James Justin, a right back, who's attractively priced, 4.7 million. Bennett is a doubt with an ankle knock, I think, and Jose Perez has been nursing a muscle problem, and he missed out in the behind closed doors games. Rodgers does expect him to train this week, but again, whether he's match sharp enough to feature is another question. So could be all Brighton down that right flank. Liverpool, I guess we should touch on. Salah and Robertson didn't feature in the Blackburn game, which was a friendly they contested last Thursday, but apparently they did subsequently get involved in an intra-squad kickabout earlier this week. So hopefully they're okay. Oxlade-Chamberlain took a knock against Blackburn as well. But again, a precautionary measure in taking him off. Newcastle, the Longstaff brothers, both name checked by Bruce as injury doubts because they missed out against Hull. That was our friendly last weekend. Again, though, Bruce expects them to be back in training this week. I think Clark and Gale are also missing. Lascelles missed out. I know he's in a lot of people's teams, but it was just because his partner had given birth. So we're expecting him to be available for the Sheffield United game. Norwich, this just broke today, actually. Hanley, the Pinkerton, who is the local paper in East Anglia, they're reporting that he's possibly going to miss the rest of the campaign or a big chunk of it with a hamstring injury. So their bad luck at centre-half just goes on. This was going to be the first game in which they had all 4 of the centre-halves available this season, but it's not transpired that way because Hanley's looking like he's going to be out. Southampton, yeah, they're the other team we've actually heard from who've got a single game week fixture. So Hasenhüttl just gave his press conference today, not long before I came in here, actually. Jeanette was out with suspension. Shane Long, we suspected this was the case. He hadn't featured in the friendly against Bristol City. He was not spotted in the training gallery either. And then Hasenhüttl's confirmed today that he's a doubt for game week 30 against Norwich. So could be Obafemi playing up alongside Ings as he did against Bristol City in our friendly. Spurs, Ali suspended. He's serving a 1-match ban. Tanganga is apparently out with a back problem, according to the Telegraph. Troy Parrott is out as well. Speculation about Giovanni Lo Celso was very, very influential before the suspension of playing in March. He's not been pictured in the friendlies or in full contact training with his teammates. He has been on the training ground, but sort of doing individual work and stretches, so he may not be ready. However, they have got a cluster of players back: Kane, Son, Bergwijn, Sissoko, all back from injury and could feature against United. Watford, Delafeu and Yamat, the only ones who are definitely out, as far as we know. Messina, Cathcart and Roberto Pereira were not risks against Brentford in last Saturday's friendly. And Firmino and Hughes were taken off as precautions, but all 5 of those players, Craig Shakespeare said afterwards, should be fine and are expecting them back in training early this week. So we're anticipating it's just those 2 players, Delafeu and Yamat, who are out. Of course, that could change with the press conference later this week. West Ham, we could even see he's back in training. I doubt he'll get into the team at the moment, but one of a number of players again for West Ham who are recovered from injury, including Fredericks, including Souček as well. Yarmolenko is another one. So they look like they've got a pretty full squad. And Gakia, I think that's how he pronounces his name, he's out of contract, a bit like Fraser at the end of June, and I think he's stolen on a contract extension as well. So no guarantees he'll be sticking around after game week 32. And finally, Wolves. Johnny and Gibbs White back in training and back involved after having been injured in the springtime. Again, we won't find out the Wolves team news until later in the week, past the deadline. But we've seen the likes of Traore in training looking sharp. Not really heard much from their friendly, so we don't know whether he's going to go with a 3-4-3 or 3-5-2. But you'd think that 3-month gap was giving Traore ample time to get over his problems that he had in March when he had the recurring shoulder issue and I think a muscle injury as well. So yeah, it could be the Three Musketeers back up front again, reunited if Traore is back to full fitness. Though I do suspect that he will continue to flip-flop between a 3-4-3 and a 3-5-2, depending on the opposition. So that's as much as I know at the moment. As I said at the start of this, be prepared for a number of injuries to crop up on Thursday and Friday when it's too late to do anything about it. Because as I said, we'll hear from 40 managers over the next 2 days. And there's bound to be something that we haven't heard of yet. Just look at what happens today with Hanley and O'Connell and Fleck. So yeah, get your benches prepped. Make sure you've got some playing subs ready to come on in case of the worst case scenario. And good luck, because I think we're going to need it.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried about my team because I haven't got a screenshot here, but if you want to see what my team is, I wrote an article about it. The only changes I've made is I've taken out Stevens for Lundstrom, and I've got rid of Mount and put Trent Alexander-Arnold in. But it leaves me with very little money. So if him or Doherty or one of those single game week players misses out, I'm kind of screwed. And like a couple of things you said, like Reece James being back is a little bit frustrating because I would love to punt on Alonso. I'm just not 100% confident. There's still a chance he could put Azpilicueta to left back, maybe play James on the right. So that does worry me a tiny bit. And you're right about Traore. It'd be interesting to see if he comes back here. That lineup this week for Wolves, I know you can't make too many assumptions on one lineup because they could just change it the next week. But if it's a 3-5-2 with Jota and no Traore, then Jota will be right on my hit list of players to bring in, so I'm looking forward to that. I know you haven't got your team ready yet. You've still got 1 hour 56 minutes to finalise it. Right now, who are you captaining? I know it can change, but right now, who are you captaining?
Right now, it's on De Bruyne, purely because I think he's got more chance of increased pitch time based on what's happened previously. But I am coming around to the prospect of Aguero, and based on what I've researched in terms of per 90 stats, and this is a new tool we've got in our members area. If you filter players by per 90, it tells you like the shots in the box, the big chances, the goal scored for every 90 minutes played. Now that I think is key in this double game week, because you'd expect Aguero to get that, even if it's spread over 2 games. And he beats everyone else entirely, I think, in every position in terms of goals scored per 90 minutes. And many of the underlying stats as well, him and Jesus are towards the top. So, you'd think he would get close to triple figures for minutes against Arsenal and Burnley combined, in which case you'd anticipate a goal or more from him. I think with De Bruyne, I think I heard Dave and Joe talking about this on Tuesday in the captain video. It's basically the best assister versus the best goal scorer. And it's a bit of a sort of a straight shootout because I don't think I can consider Aubameyang for the captaincy based on the fact that he's got City away in one of his fixtures. I think it's just a straight choice between the two. And I expect I'll be flip-flopping between the pair of them until 5-5 and then pick the wrong one, which always happens. What about yourself?
Yeah,
what have you gone for?
I'm currently on Aguero. When I saw that per 90 stat, 0.99 goals per 90 minutes. Now, obviously, you got to put some context behind that, as always, that he doesn't necessarily get 90 minutes that often. But like you say, I'm expecting kind of at least 90 minutes plus across those 2 games for him. At least I got my fingers crossed for that. So I'm currently on Aguero. I don't know. He's just the one for double game weeks, and I've missed out on him a few times previously, either not owning him or not captaining him when I should have. And I'm trying to not overthink it. I know De Bruyne is probably the one he will be the most captain player this week, I'm sure. There's a part of me actually that I know they're still going to rotate, but after Pep was kind of almost reinforced, like you said, because he said it before about Sterling, I've got half a mind just to put it on Sterling, but it's really difficult. It'll be one of those who've got absolutely no inclination to go for Aubameyang. There's just a few other things. We'll just quickly wrap up in the chat. Like, there's people asking about Aguero. I've not seen anything concrete. Not like I said earlier, the O'Connell thing seems to have enough weight behind it where it seems like it could be a legit thing. I've not seen anything about Aguero starting or not, so I'm not really personally concerning myself over that in my decision. Pulisic is just impossible to call. Because they've got so many players that can play wide. Hudson-Odoi now seems to be fine to play. Pedro and Willian, although I don't think they've signed their contracts still, which is strange. And interesting, actually, I don't know if you mentioned it, Fraser hasn't signed a new deal, which is crazy. So Pulisic, you just can't... I like him as a partner. Neale's written a really good article on him. But it's just when he started, just don't know. And Aston Villa keeper, all I see is Aston Villa fans seem to not want Reina to start, but everything we kind of know seems to be that he will continue to be the one, right? Have you got him in your predicted lineup?
I have, but yeah, it's more sort of than fan pressure than anything else we're going off in terms of the clamour for Nyland to get a recall. Because Reina was pretty abysmal, especially in that Leicester game. But yeah, Reina's got the sort of experience, of these types of situations. Maybe not a relegation scrap, but high pressure games. And you'd think he'd stick to his guns and play him, but you never know. He might only be another error or two away from being demoted himself. Because they got Steer back as well as Nyland. So.
And he has made some pretty big mistakes. He made that one for Harvey Barnes in Gameweek 29.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Anyway, we'll leave it there. That's been quite a long one because there has been lots to go for, as you'd imagine. Start of the season again. So thanks very much for joining me, Neale.
No problem. Good luck, everybody. And see you probably next Monday or Tuesday for the next team news video if you've got time for one. Hopefully we can.
Yeah, either way, between now and next deadline, there'll be plenty of videos. We'll figure out which ones we're going to do based on deadlines and stuff. There's 2,481 people watching as we speak, so make sure to hit that like button before you drop out. Subscribe if you're new around here, and we will catch you again soon. And also, members, if you want to check that out, like I said about the offer earlier, there's a link in the description below. We will see you again soon. Cheers all.